Hi, folks. This is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. Well, there's not too much fishing going on right now, but I will tell you that because of the last month of the severe cold that we've had, the ice formation seems to be earlier this year than many years in the recent past. I remember doing TV shows where I would stand along the causeway near Waddington and catch northern pike just at Christmas time. And that was really special to me to be able to do that. But now the ice is formed in most places. And, I've never recommended you ice fishing on our tributaries because you've got current and everything. You're not going to have big patches of really safe ice. And we know that first ice can be very dangerous. We've talked about this. Every week I talk about safety as being one of the most important things to think about. As I've driven along the St. Lawrence River this last week, you can see that in the bays and in the waters where people like to ice fish, there's ice been formed and there's already people fishing. One of the places that I've seen people is at the causeway as you're heading between Messina and Waddington, the causeway that goes over the Faubourg Lake. And on the riverside, there's a section just offshore where people tend to congregate ice fishing. I believe that there's a lot of walleyes that hang in there, and it's excellent perch fishing. And I've already seen people out there on this first ice. I never recommend that, but remember, the beginning of the ice fishing year is always some of the best fishing. That goes against all my warnings about safety. But the fish haven't seen any activity. They haven't been pursued since late summer or early fall. So right now, that's probably one of the reasons why early ice fishing is so good. These fish haven't been fished for in ages, and they're not that leery like they are as the winter goes on. After a lot of pressure, they're going to get more difficult to catch. But this is the one time right now when the ice is first forming, and in the spring when the ice is going out, when some of the best fishing is. This is when the fish are most vulnerable because they're still in these inland areas where the people have easy access to them. And they've come into these areas to spawn, and there's big numbers of fish there. One thing I want you to realize, if you haven't ice fished much, that any place that we have some tributary of water flow coming into the St. Lawrence River, those fish are going to gather in the water right outside that, where right after the water spills in from the tributaries. And an example of this is Brandy Brook between Messina and Waddington. This is a very favorite place for people to ice fish for walleyes. Now, the case has usually been that most of the walleyes that are in this area are juvenile, and a lot of them aren't legal size limit to keep. But other places that are really gather a lot of fish, or a lot of fish gather, is where the Oswegatchie River in Ogdensburg flows into the St. Lawrence. Just outside that, that's where the fish will school up in preparation for going up the river. And this can be a fabulous place, but whenever you've got different currents meeting, you're not going to have as safe ice, and it's someplace to be careful of. And the Greenbelt in Ogdensburg is another wonderful place for early ice fishing. And the other place that I could recommend to you as well is in Messina, where the Grass River, after the Grass River flows through the town of Messina and then heads out to meet the St. Lawrence, that area out by the campgrounds is an excellent winter ice fishing area. These are places you might not know about, but they're places where a new ice fisherman can sort of get its feet wet. Poor choice of words, I know, in getting ready for the winter season. Ice fishing can be some of the best fishing of the year, and we'll try to really focus on that now as we're getting into ice conditions. But one of the things that some of the states in the Midwest have found, now that we have these incredible shanties that are heated and people can stay in 24 hours and fish for those periods of time and fish through the night and so forth, it becomes a real strain on a lot of the fish populations, and they've really seen this happening in Minnesota, in Wisconsin, and the state DECs in those areas are really concerned about people taking so many fish. It's because fish are very vulnerable during ice fishing. And remember, we've had some wonderful tournaments here, and I've talked about the people that have made such a difference, that make our winter fishing so special, and those people are in all our communities. And to mention a few is like Mike Gagne in Messina, and Hank Bouchard and Bob Flavin in Ogdensburg. These people have done so much to make sure we have a walleye population in this area. And they've been so successful through the years that now the DEC feels that they don't need to stock walleyes in our area at all. And we do have that wonderful fishery. But I wanted you folks to realize that the ice is forming, and it's forming every place now. And so the good ice fishing won't be long behind this. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report.